So congratulations. You're going to fail. Aren't you happy? Congratulations. Your life is falling apart. How fortunate. Congratulations. People hate you. You are a lucky one. Now, as we read these Beatitudes, we must keep in mind that Matthew's gospel is written in light of the Jewish context, a people who live post-exilic in a restored Jerusalem with a rebuilt temple and a religious government, all under Roman rule. And it's written to God's chosen people that this is your true Messiah. Not simply another Caesar or Cyrus. No, this is the heir to the throne, the divine descendant of David, the Son of God. And his messiahship is demonstrated in his passing the test and overcoming temptation in the wilderness. Where their ancestors failed, Jesus prevailed. And his messiahship is demonstrated in his calling of disciples and people to follow him, that he is leading them to a new promised land, a new kind of promised land, one that Jesus calls the kingdom of heaven. And his messiahship is demonstrated in how he heals and frees people from their sin and sickness, their disease and afflictions. He's giving them the promises of God here on earth as it is in heaven. And as he announced the good news of the kingdom of heaven, people listened and people followed. And Jesus sat down in the seat of authority, and his disciples came to him and gathered around. And this highlights the fact that if we're going to be disciples of Jesus, we're going to have to follow him and learn from him. And his message from the mountain is our come to Jesus moment. And he gives his most famous sermon called the Sermon on the Mount. In Luke, we read it as the Sermon on the Plain, yet I believe that Jesus gave this sermon or some form of it over and over multiple times throughout his ministry. It was core to what he taught about the kingdom of heaven. And here Matthew puts it in his gospel front and center. This is his thesis statement of Jesus' ministry. Matthew's gospel depicts Jesus in a setting that is reminiscent of Moses on the mountain giving the law to the children of Israel. Because once, long ago, God freed the Israelites from their slavery and bondage to the Egyptians, that they were freed to live a new life, that they had lived under oppression and slavery and bondage under the empire for so long that God needed to teach them how to live in a new way as free people. So through Moses, God gave them the law of holy instruction. This is how you will live. This is how you will order your life. This is how you will care for and support yourself and one another. This is how you will represent me to the rest of creation. Yet somehow along the way, the Israelites balked. God's new and better way for them was unfamiliar, and the unfamiliar can be scary. It can be hard. And they were afraid, and so they wanted to go back to Egypt, back to the familiar. They would rather live under the empire, even if it meant being enslaved and oppressed, because that's what they knew. Sometimes we give up something better that God has in store for us because we're afraid of something new. It's why they failed their tests and temptations in the wilderness. Here, now, Jesus is giving them a fresh start. And he's freeing them from their slavery to sin and their bondage of spiritual and physical affliction. And he's teaching them a new way to live. And he does it with authority. He's teaching like in a way that's unlike anything they have ever heard before, and it's absolutely shocking. Happy are the hopeless. Happy are those who grieve. Happy are the humble. Happy are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Happy are the merciful. Happy are those with pure hearts. Happy are those who make peace. Happy are those who are harassed because they are righteous. Now, wait a minute now. Happy? Did we read that right? I thought it was blessed. Anybody else? Yeah. Well, we can thank King James for the beautiful blessed verses. Yet the Greek word here is makarios, which literally means happy. It can also mean blessed or fortunate. In Homer's Greek, it was used to describe the immortals on Mount Olympus. Essentially, it's a term to define what heaven is like. Yet in the everyday vernacular, it came to mean something along the lines of congratulations, or lucky are those. Lucky are those people. This was a familiar idiom to Jesus' audience, and they would have known sayings like, lucky are the rich and wealthy. Lucky are the powerful. Lucky are those who are kings and politicians and people with enough influence and affluence to get what they want when they want it. Congratulations to all of them. But here, Jesus is inverting the kingdoms of the world by prescribing and describing the kingdom of heaven. And his description of the kingdom of heaven is so different from Rome and Olympus and even Jerusalem that the faithful Jews pause to listen. Because while Jesus takes sin seriously, he takes grace even more seriously. And in Psalm 34:18, we read that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He saves those whose spirits are crushed. And we find throughout the Gospels how Jesus connects with the outcast and the oppressed, the marginalized and poor, and especially the brokenhearted. That he is with them. He heals them. And he changes their life. That through him, they experience the kingdom of heaven. Yet this contradicted the religious leaders who were also teaching the law of Moses, except their interpretation taught that if you did good, you got good, and if you did bad, you got bad. Good things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people. Therefore, if something good happened to you, you must be good. God is with you, and God is blessing you. But if something bad happens to you, you must have done something wrong. It must be your fault. Kind of like karma. Except karma is devoid of grace. Now, what they taught wasn't completely wrong. They just missed out on a lot. And Jesus was bringing in more than balance. He was bringing the teaching to completeness. And Jesus is saying that the kingdom of heaven isn't this uptight temple. It's got room for everyone who believes the good news. Now, this could be hard for us to accept because it feels unfair, because we like to get good for doing good, and we hope that those who do bad get bad, and we're especially interested in the good for ourselves. And a lot of times when we read the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, We see parallels in them, especially as Luke and Matthew echo the earlier Gospel of Mark. Yet where Luke helps us see Jesus as the compassionate human, Matthew helps us see Jesus as the promised Messiah. And Matthew gives us a radically different view of what a king looks like. That Jesus is not a king of this world. He is the king of the kingdom of heaven. And in Isaiah 55:9, we read that his ways are above our ways. His plans are above our plans. His kingdom is above our kingdom. And this here is how the kingdom of heaven operates. So as we think about this, there are some implied questions. Are the Beatitudes then requirements to receiving the kingdom of heaven? Is this some heavenly imperative demanding obedient action? Or are these actually a description of Jesus' imminent return? Are they proof of God's presence with us? Yes. Because while theologians have different understandings of what these can mean for us, I would encourage us to consider it as a both and. We should understand Matthew's Beatitudes both as expressions of God's grace and as implicit commands. Because being humble and merciful and pure of heart and a peacemaker are great. This is what the kingdom of heaven is like. They won't save your soul. It won't get you to heaven, because salvation is by God's grace, and God is offering you and everyone that grace, no matter who you are or where you are or what you've done. But if you accept that grace, if we are recipients of that grace, then these are the ways that we're going to live. These are the actions that we're going to take. We will be humble. We will be merciful. We will be pure of heart. We will be peacemakers. While at the same time, if you find yourself in a position of feeling hopeless or grieving or brokenhearted, longing for justice, hungry for righteousness, I've got good news, because God is right there with you. Or if you find yourself insulted because you choose to be humble and merciful and pure of heart and a peacemaker, then guess what? God is right there with you. Because the kingdom of heaven is with the downcast and the downtrodden and the overlooked and the overgoverned. And the kingdom of Jesus lifts up the lonely and it turns the tables on the rich and powerful and elite. And in contrast, his kingdom, the kingdom of heaven, is kicked to the curb by the kingdoms of this world, because the world rejects this version of Jesus and sometimes exchanges Jesus on the cross for a version that suits their own desires. And as a result, Jesus offers a warning that his kingdom has no room for burdensome, hyper-religious, legalistic establishment, nor room for the empire of unjust and overbearing powers that be. So if you are a part of the powers that be, if you are wealthy, influential, hold a position of authority, whether you earned it, inherited it, or stumbled into it, then you have a responsibility to live in the ways of the kingdom of heaven. In Luke 12:48 we read, "From everyone to whom much has been given, much will be required." Or as Stan Lee said it, "With great power comes great responsibility." For me, when I read this list, when I read these Beatitudes, When I read these characters of the kingdom of heaven, I have to say that I am blessed. I have been blessed because I have always had the sense that God was with me. Now, this doesn't mean things have always been easy, because I've questioned God, I've been angry at God, I've yelled and screamed at God. But I have never doubted God's presence in my life. That when things got hard, when work days were so long and so grueling that my body ached from physical labor and my hands and arms and legs and feet cramped as I lay in bed at night, that when I didn't know how I was going to pay the electric bill in the summer or the gas bill in the wintertime, or when I felt abandoned by my family or friends, I still knew that God was there and that God was with me and that somehow I would get through it. Yet even with all that blessing, there were times when I failed to be kind and humble and merciful and peace-building. There were times when I was anything but any of those, because sometimes I failed to remember that God was not only with me, but also with the other, those who were hurting, those who were struggling, those who were lonely. That I didn't always treat people as if God was present right there with them. Some days I failed to give grace. Many days I failed to give grace. And I wish I could say that I never failed now. But the truth is, I have to remind myself that I have to remind myself of Jesus' words. I have to remind myself of Jesus' blessings, because even when I'm having a bad day and even when I don't feel like it, I have a responsibility to offer grace, to be merciful, to be humble to those who are struggling, to those who are lonely, to those who are going through life's worst moments. I have a responsibility to offer grace and to be merciful and be humble and to offer peace instead of pain, because these are the things that I have received. That God has seen me through my pain and offered me peace. And Jesus makes it clear that life doesn't always go our way, that those who live in the kingdom of heaven, that sometimes we're going to struggle, we're going to have a hard time. And sometimes this is because we make bad decisions. Sometimes it's because we have stupid mistakes. And sometimes it's because that we are overwhelmed with regret. And sometimes it's because of where we were born, or the family we were born into, or our neighborhood, or our city, or our country put us at a disadvantage. Yet the kingdom of heaven, it makes room for all of us, for me and for you. And it says, how fortunate are you that you have suffered all these troubles. Because like the youth learned at LMP this week, in your struggle, you get to experience God who knows you and sees you and loves you, that you are not forgotten, that you are not alone, that God is with you. And these Beatitudes are more than a blessing for us. They're an attitude that we take. That when you suffer because of Jesus, even better. How lucky are you that you are persecuted because you chose mercy over wrath, grace over judgment, and love over hate. Congratulations that people lied about you because they couldn't find anything wrong with you, but couldn't stand to be beside you because of their own insecurities. Happy and blessed are you because you longed for something better and strove to make things better. You are not alone. And you are not the only one. Because there were people like you before you, and there will be people like you after you. And for all of us, all of you, congratulations, as you are truly blessed, because yours is the kingdom of heaven. Amen.